Hi everyone. Thank you for being here for the contractor informational session in regard to the PACE program here in Fayetteville. My name's Byron DeLear, and I'm with A2E2, which is the Arkansas Advanced Energy Equity Program, and I'm here with Tom Applebaum, and we are program administrators for the PACE program here. I wanted to recognize some folks here that serve on the PACE board, Julie Trivet and Don Bennett and Frank Mayfield of Harrison Energy. And our other partner in A2E2 is Steve Patterson, and you may know him because he's with the Arkansas Advanced Energy Association. And also someone who has really been instrumental in helping design and implement this program is the Sustainability Director for the City of Fayetteville, which is Peter Nierengarten here. So we view our roles as program administrators to really facilitate what you guys do as contractors in the marketplace. And what PACE financing is it's another tool in your toolbox to bring some projects over the finish line. Because basically the concept is an innovative funding mechanism that may be able to step in and provide 100% upfront financing for projects where traditional forms of financing may not be able to, may not have the capacity to get the project funded. So briefly, I'm just going to describe some of the conceptual designs behind the PACE concept. PACE is an acronym. It stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy, and it's an innovative means to finance energy efficiency upgrades or renewable energy installations for buildings. It also includes water conservation measures. Harvard Business Review called it the 10 breakthrough ideas of 2010, and Scientific American called it one of the top 20 ideas that can change the world. That's a pretty lofty, aspirational idea, and there's some reasons why people are so excited about this mechanism. And these are the reasons. It's funding that is not considered debt because it's treated like a property tax. It's treated like a special tax assessment on property, and that's why it's off balance sheet. So for sophisticated property owners, being able to free up capital for core competencies, in other words, the business that they're in, as opposed to carrying debt on a balance sheet, like a traditional loan would be, that's very attractive. And most often when you're dealing with a large property owner that has, you know, like a commercial building, it's very important to begin some of these discussions on the CFO level, the level of the person that's dealing with the financing for the property. Oftentimes the managers of operations may not have an understanding of what it means to say that this is not debt. Even though it's a loan, it's not really debt. It's off balance sheet.
So as contractors, really what you need to do is shift the conversation about how much this is going to cost versus how much this is going to save them. Because instead of saying that they're going to be, you know, borrowing $2 million to do a project, you can talk to them about how much money they're going to save every month with regards to their operating costs. And that's one of the key components of this. So when we talk about off balance sheet, it's not seen as debt with regards to how their business is run, but it will affect their cash flow as part of their business operation.
And of course, you know, we'll probably be covering a lot of information today that you already realize. But one of the statutory definitions for PACE financing in Arkansas is that the project is cash flow positive. So that means that the savings that is being generated by the scope of work is greater than the payments. And so one of the other attractive characteristics of PACE financing is you can borrow money up to 20 years. So a lot of times commercial lending, commercial banks only want to do a 10-year loan. So when you're able to go out to 20 years, those annual payments get a lot smaller so that it becomes cash flow positive.
And real quick, how many people here have been to any other contractor trainings or anything like that? Okay, because we can now talk a little bit more about what we've seen in the marketplace with regards to how this project has been playing out with regards to property owners and what other contractors have been experiencing in the field. And that is crucial when you start talking about PACE. You really have to talk about what the overall financial picture is with regards to the property owners and what that does do for the cash flow of the business, and kind of reach it at a very high level with regards to the overall building. Instead of, it's like you can start off with something that's got a really short payback, and then you can start to fold in other things that'll affect the overall building, and look at it more from a holistic standpoint. Because when you're talking about cash flow, you can put a lot of things in there. And like Byron was saying, if they talk to a bank's not going to want to go out further than 10 years. If we can go out 20 years, that's a real game changer for some of these projects.
And we just completed a $2.5 million project for the Missouri Athletic Club in St. Louis. Not completed, but the deal has been struck, and it will be closing this week. And this is a property owner that is a nonprofit, and they did not view the opportunity in terms of their balance sheet. They didn't view an ability to engage in such a comprehensive energy retrofit. But because of the presence of the PACE program in St. Louis, they were able to start to go down this track, and we got an energy services corporation involved in the deal, and so it made it possible for this property owner. And that's really the core design behind the PACE concept, which is enabling more property owners to do this work on their property, where they may not have the opportunity to do so because of their debt that they're carrying as a company or as an individual.
Yeah, the first thing they try to do is they try to get that scope down to like $700,000. When they looked at the whole project, and they looked at how these different things can be brought in to affect the overall payback of the program, they wound up at $2.5 million.
So this describes kind of the five-step process. Property owner submits a project application. The final scope of work is generated with the contractor. The project is approved and a PACE loan signed with the owner. Property owner confirms work has been completed, and the property owner begins payments offset by energy savings. It's kind of a simple description. Now, of course, you guys understand as contractors that in the commercial sphere, properties have a great wide variance, and so there are a lot of idiosyncrasies associated with each property that are individual. So oftentimes we have to treat these on a case-by-case basis. There's not really a cookie-cutter approach that works, because different property owners have different concerns, different properties have different issues, and so we're cognizant of that fact. And one of our roles as program administrators is to try to make the financing piece and the application process as seamless as possible. Inordinate delays could break a deal. And so we want to make sure that things are moving forward and that we're in constant communication with you all as the project matures.
And the concept of PACE, and that whole, keep going back to that whole cash flow versus going into debt for something, that can be a tough concept for a lot of people. And one of the things that we view our roles as with regards to administrators, in addition to streamlining the process and making sure that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and the project is what it's supposed to be, and they're not using a property tax assessment to pay for a swimming pool or something like that, is facilitating the process with the contractor and going out and talking about helping you be able to sell that concept and explain that concept in a way that a property owner is going to get it. And like Byron said, we've seen a vast variety of projects come in our doors. When we first launched up in Missouri, it was mostly solar projects because there was a really great rebate going on. Rebate dried up, solar kind of, fell off the table for a little while, and then we started to see more and more energy efficiency and some mixed with solar, but we've seen the pipeline really explode. Okay, the market trend that we're seeing right now is that people are starting to pay a lot more attention to what PACE can do. One of the indications of that is the fact that when we first launched, liquidity was a concern. You know, where are we going to get the funds to fund these projects? We can sell bonds to do these things, but it takes a lot of money to justify selling a bond. Well, now we have financiers calling us wanting to supply capital because these projects are so good, because you're seeing positive cash flow, and then you've got a property tax assessment for security. So, as things start to ramp up with regards to these projects, and we start to see this pipeline of millions of dollars happening, it's one of the good indicators that people are starting to recognize these things. It's a matter of getting it out to the property owners to actually explain it.
And you know, just so you understand, I'll repeat some of this information. The reason why funding sources now are showing up, and we have developed relationships with several different funds that want to fund projects in Fayetteville. The reason why they're showing up is because when a special tax assessment gets attached to the financing for an energy improvement, that has a higher level of credit enhancement and securitization than traditional forms of lending. So this is looked at as an investment grade opportunity from the funding sources standpoint. And that's why they want to fund your projects. And so as a contractor, as you're speaking to the property owner, understand that there's this large quantity of money that wants to come into the marketplace, because these projects, they default at a lower rate than other forms of property improvements, less than 1% nationally at this point. And the numbers are still developing because obviously this is a new idea. And so I'm gonna talk a little bit about the history of the program, but because Tom and I are here, we want to make sure that we've got such an intimate gathering here. We want to make sure that all your questions are answered, and don't feel shy if a question you don't feel is, maybe it's not, just don't feel shy, and please, ask and interject in this presentation, because we're here to serve you. So the history of PACE, it's an old concept. They had an opt-in fire district in 1736. It was, you could opt in and your property be covered for fire services. And that's good old Ben Franklin, he came up with the idea. So the history is there's pilot programs in California, Colorado, and New York. This is 2008, 2009. The 31 states and the District of Columbia have adopted it, 80% of the U.S. population covered. There are 14 active commercial PACE programs right now with about $115 million of activity. There's been about $600 million of activity on the residential side. Right now we don't have a residential side up in Fayetteville, but we're working on that. And
I think the latest pipeline number I heard is about $300 million for commercial projects nationwide. And that number is ramping up rapidly too.
So it was passed in the Arkansas legislature in 2013. Mike Beebe signed it in April 15th, 2013. So Fayetteville passed the PACE enabling ordinance in October 2013. The Energy Improvement District was created. We launched in December. And Mayor Lionel Jordan did a press conference over there at the library, and it was well attended. I see several faces here that were at that meeting as well, so thank you for doubling up. These are some of the projects that we're processing currently in the Fayetteville pipeline. We've got a restaurant, comprehensive energy retrofit, office building, another couple office buildings, storage facility. Like I mentioned, the property in the commercial side varies greatly.
So typically with like an office building, if you have something like a triple net lease, the way to talk to a property owner about that would be that both the savings and the costs can be passed on to their tenants, okay? And then of course, the tenant's going to be realizing savings with regards to this. It makes their property much more marketable.
Now here's some case studies. This will kind of show you an overview of some properties that have utilized PACE financing for property improvements.
Yeah.
This was the fastest project funded from program launch. This was a project in St. Louis, and it was a solar project for a small little mom and pop pet grooming store called Four Muddy Paws. And they were very happy to get solar panels on their property, and they also did some LED lighting. This is an example. You guys have probably seen this. This is a little online widget that shows what the solar panels are generating. On June 3rd, the energy generated was 40.7 kilowatt hours, which is enough to power the lighting of the Eiffel Tower for 12 minutes. This is a large office building property in San Francisco. It's a $1.4 million energy efficiency project. And they wound up annual estimated savings of nearly $100,000 a year. Reduce energy use by 30%. That's a huge reduction. This is mom and pop Little Bob's Big Boy in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they serve big hamburgers there, apparently. So what was unique about this project is they were able to do high efficiency kitchen equipment, which was kind of unique. Energy Star cooking equipment. They projected $8,300 in annual savings.
Yeah, the definitions for what PACE can be used for are fairly broad. I mean, I joked about a swimming pool before, but we have used, you know, we've looked at sprinkler systems that are high efficiency water usage, you know, controls, a lot of different things. And you know, we were also able to segment off a project where if you've got, let's say, a full like gut rehab of a property, okay, all that's not going to fit under PACE, but we can segment off a portion of that has to do with energy efficiency and renewable energy. And the way we talk about new development or rehab, something like that, what we basically say is that if you compare industry standards with regards to what construction grade appliances are, HVAC, lighting, that sort of thing, they can put in A+ stuff, okay, and they can get it all paid for. And what we do is we take what would be standards with regards to the industry, not necessarily what the property owner would have done anyway, but what the standards are in the construction industry, and then you compare that with what's being installed. That gives us our baseline with regards to what the savings are going to be. So there's a big potential here for people doing rehabs or new development to be able to take a portion of that development cost and then put it on a property tax assessment. Okay, now that's a big seller for somebody who's developing a property, because that's instant equity. If you can take a portion of that development cost and put it on the property tax, that property owner now has instant equity in his property. And that's a good way to think about it with regards to anybody that's trying to invest in their property, that they're developing instant equity in their property.
This is one of the creative uses for PACE, is being able to use it for new development. This is a multifamily property in Washington, D.C. They did nearly a $300,000 PACE project, and estimated annual benefits is $40,000. This is the aforementioned Missouri Athletic Club, venerable institution in downtown St. Louis. This happens to be the first building to have HVAC west of the Mississippi. Wow. And indeed the original air handlers are in that building. I think the Japanese Zeros were just flying back to their aircraft carrier when they installed these things in 1941. So this particular building doesn't have any controls, so it is primed for the comprehensive energy retrofit that we've done.
Their approach had been just putting Band-Aids on stuff, and you know, with the building that old, it was really starting to show. And like a lot of property owners that you guys probably get contacted by, there's something that's bugging them. You know, it's something that's going to break, or something broke, or whatever. These guys, when the polar vortex hit, they're on the steam loop for the city of St. Louis, and that is an unregulated utility, okay? So when that polar vortex hit, that same pipeline was supplying Chicago, Milwaukee, a bunch of other cities up north. Their rates for a few months there tripled, okay? And when you're a nonprofit operating without a huge excess budget, they felt that, and that prompted them to start looking into this. So, what we did is, working with an ESCO that kind of understands the whole concept of energy service performance contract, and taking that conversation about borrowing so much money and moving it to a conversation about how much money they could save every month. That's how they were able to get that a $2.5 million project done.
So we've got a couple snapshots of how we would like the contractors to be on the a2e2.net website portal. This is a snapshot of the Set the Pace portal, but you can kind of see, you get your logo up there. People can click on that and they get a description of what services you offer. So the value of this is a nominal registration fee to be on the A2E2 website. And what this allows is for property owners, when they come and hear about the program through earned media campaigns or through promotion through the city, sustainability efforts, the property owner can go to the website and they can see the companies that are participating and supporting the program, and that generates sales for you. So here's like some descriptions of some of the companies. You have a brief little, here's Brightergy, a solar company. How many solar contractors are here today? One, very good. So that's the presentation.
Well, the only thing I'd add to that is that the idea of our program is to create a lot of cross-pollination with regards to contractors. I talk a lot about a holistic approach with regards to buildings and that sort of thing. We've had several projects that might come in as just a solar project, or it might come in as just a lighting project, and then we try to expand the scope and bring them in to look at this as a way to finance it all, and really create a project that's going to help transform their business.
Now, did all of you get the contractor one sheet and the trifold that is for the general public? If you could, please get out either the contractor one sheet and trifold, and see if there's any questions that come to mind in regard to how you can utilize PACE on the projects that you're working on. And we're here to answer questions. There is a registration form, Steve, as well. So this is the contractor registration form for the program, and we encourage you to be a part of this program. This is a public-private partnership, and it shows a lot of good community citizenship to be supporting this program, because it is part of the city's broader sustainability goals and economic development goals. And so it's important for us all to sort of gather together and propel this project forward.
Is there anybody here that does residential? Well, what's a brief update on that is that Freddie and Fannie didn't like the idea of doing this property tax assessment on homes, residences. What's transpired in the past couple years, maybe not even that long, California has gone ahead with it, and they've done a couple of things. They created a loan loss reserve, but basically they said we don't really care what Freddie and Fannie are saying. We're going to go ahead and do it, and they've done a huge amount of residential contracts. Okay, so we're always looking for the best approach with regards to getting this program launched for residential as well. Now, we've fielded some residential contracts, but in Missouri, but we don't. We got to be upfront with them about the fact that we can't do a tax assessment as of yet. But we're looking into ways of going about, because the problem here is that banks will stay away from it because they don't want to upset Freddie and Fannie, because they control like 50% of the mortgage market. So,
Any questions?
What's the normal route from customer to getting the project done? Is it industry driven more from all this, or is it individual property owners that happen to have the insight and
So,
discernment to see, hey, we have a need, and they go out and seek someone out? Or
yeah, I would say you're still dealing with a sacred sort of private sector decision of a property owner deciding to borrow money to improve their property. And that's really the centerpiece of how the program operates. And our role as administrators is to empower you with as much materials and knowledge of what the beneficial characteristics of PACE financing provides, so that you can communicate that to the property owner so that they can make a decision to improve their property. And of course, you know, the key element there is that this is 100% upfront financing, and the payments are offset by savings. So it doesn't affect their cash flow at all, and yet they see their property getting more valuable.
and we've seen most applications come in through contractors. And so what we, we make sure that the contractors understand is that if a contractor brings a project to us, we work with the contractor, okay? If they need another contractor, like I mentioned before, it's like somebody comes in with a lighting project and they start talking to us about insulation or roof or something like that, then other contractors can come in. If the scope expands even more, that's fine too. But basically, it's like contractor brings a project to us, that project belongs to that contractor, and they're not shopped around to other contractors or anything like that. But that's where we've seen most of the projects come in. We have reached out directly to some property managers, property holders. We've marketed to building owner and manager groups and things like that as well. But really, we rely on the contractors to be able to explain this to property owners. Okay, I mean, it's not necessarily an easy concept to grasp. I mean, we've talked to bankers about it, and they're just looking at us with blank stares. But it's the contractors that have to be able to talk about the cash flow and be able to do those return on investments and those type of things to be able to show, how this is actually going to save them money.
what's the normal sequence from a property owner that wants to do something that, the engineering involved? I mean, that's no small thing to get
Yeah.
it properly engineered with payback. What do you do? And the contractors oftentimes aren't equipped to do that. How's that?
So you generate a scope, and then you revisit the scope about 100 times. You do.
Well, he's just joking. You
Yeah.
don't do it 100 times. You do it 99.
It just seems like that sometimes. But it depends really on what the point of origin of the project is. But I mean, obviously we want to you want to get an engineer involved, and it depends on the complexity of the building. If you're talking about a mom and pop shop, like I said, the reason why that one project, that solar project, was able to fund so fast is because it was real straightforward. We're going to put some solar panels on our property. We're going to get a rebate on those panels, and we're going to start generating electricity for us. Okay, the Missouri Athletic Club, that we went back and forth on that, and they revisited the scope, and it was constantly had to keep going back to if you take this out, what does this do to the ROI? If you put this in, what does this do? If we can save you some money here, if we can work with you with regards to the terms, and I just want to make sure that it's clear that we, for this program, and for every program that we administer, we have an open financing source, which means that we will bring whatever financing source makes the most sense to that property owner with regards to how they want to fund the project. But I mean, it's like that little 5-step arrow thing is about as best we could do as far as a template goes, because everything varies with regards to commercial properties. An office building versus agriculture versus industrial. I mean, these are all these are all, you know, really different projects. So, you know, but we want to have the most information with regards to what the benefits are going to be, and then if we can get the best measurement verification as possible, that's a big help for us as well.
And a concept that works really good with PACE is, of course, whole building science. And looking at a property from a holistic standpoint as a singular energy system and trying to figure out what the weak points are. Oftentimes a property owner will want money to do LED lighting upgrades, and you know, and as you engage with the property owner, you can say, well, have you looked at building envelope? Have you looked at some energy efficiency measures? Because those are inexpensive for the amount of benefit that they provide. And it's important to look at our buildings as complete energy systems. And in this way, we can have the most significant impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and reducing our carbon footprint. Because this is really the underlying motivation behind all this, is to create a more environmentally friendly community. And if you can do that while saving folks on energy bills and also stimulating the housing sector and the contractors, then it's a win-win-win. And it's truly a triple bottom line concept, and that's why this program exists. The community has a seat at the table in regard to how we use our energy. And that's why they've made this public-private partnership tool available to stimulate the retrofits of our existing buildings infrastructure. And that's what this whole program's about, and that's why we want all you guys to register with the program, get your logos up on the website, and this thing will really propel Fayetteville into a more sustainable future.
Are there any other cities around Fayetteville that are looking into this?
Yes. There's a bunch of different jurisdictions are at various stages with regards to launch this program. We talked a little bit about that, but you had to have the state statute, and then you have to have an ordinance passed that creates a board to oversee the whole program. So, and we, as administrators of the program, answer to that board. The way the statute in Arkansas works is that boards can actually work together, so jurisdictions can actually expand in a way. You could also have other jurisdictions opting into the board for Fayetteville, and there's been some discussion about that.
So you're talking about county governments, or?
Could be county governments, could be
Yeah.
municipalities. Peter can talk about that.
There's definitely an active contingency down in central Arkansas in creating a PACE district for Pulaski County, and we are engaging Washington County as well here. They're interested in wanting to see how the PACE program is operating here in Fayetteville. But I think down the road there's definitely opportunity for expanding the district to include Washington County and hopefully a larger area of northwest Arkansas.
So
Yeah, and one thing about-
ordinances have been passed in 3 other jurisdictions: the city of Little Rock, the city of North Little Rock, and the county of Pulaski County. So other than Fayetteville, so that's where we are legally. And then those 3 entities are trying to work out whether they should be a unified district or proceed.
Yeah, I mean, scale always helps PACE. I mean, the bigger the better. Larger projects are easier to get financing for. Bigger jurisdictions provides more opportunity for the contractors. So we're always looking to expand.
One of the really great things about Fayetteville is you all have a very forward-thinking PACE board for the Energy Improvement District here. And they're very motivated to have the discussions to expand the footprint of the program, for instance, into Washington County, which is more attractive than for contractors, because if you don't have any properties redlined out of your district, then you can utilize this tool and mechanism more frequently. So it's a distinct advantage, because in our work with other PACE programs and advising different situations, sometimes the powers that be, if you will, are a little more resistant. So this is very good for Fayetteville. Yes, Peter?
And then,
Oh, sorry.
I'll let Shannon ask her question.
Sorry, the contractor setup and marketing fees, is that a one-time fee or is it a yearly fee?
That's a one-time fee.
One-time setup fee.
you want to show folks, I pulled the website up here, on the website where their name and logo lives. This is the actual Fayetteville A2E2 website that they've developed for us.
See, property owner would click on Find Contractors, and like here's Harrison Energy Partners. You could click on that. Shows a description of what Harrison's all about. You know, Pinnacle right here. You can click on that. Has a description of Pinnacle.
And it might also be helpful, Byron, if you showed folks if they're directing a customer to the website, where a customer signs up on the website.
Yeah, so there's a tab here called Getting Started, and you just click on that, and it has a step process here, including the project application. And here's a PDF form or an online method of entering the information. Just some basic cursory information. And that's Shannon Joyce, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to recognize, you know, all the work that you've done to help promote the program. And you're with Clear Result, correct? Very good. Well, thank you so much for helping promote the program, and Steve speaks very highly of you.
So initially what we do is we take a look and just we see if the property and the property owner meet the very most basic eligibility requirements. The property owner's got to be the one that's applying for the program. It has to be in the district, that sort of thing. So there's not a whole lot of information up front that we need, and then we typically, if the project's being driven to us through a contractor, we'll then engage with the contractor to start to work about the specific details. So whatever information is needed, might vary slightly depending upon what kind of financing source we start looking at. But basically, we're into the process and having a conversation already by the time we start asking for anything, regarding.
And this
ROI.
is a page that has the eligible projects and different products that you can install on your property. It's an exhaustive list, and there's a disclaimer here that says it's not limited to this list. These are just showing you some of the projects and products that can be installed. There's over 100,000, 150,000 of these things. And but mainly the main categories are renewable energy, energy efficiency, or water conservation measures.
So if you have something that somebody wants to install, and it has to do with energy efficiency, renewable energy, or water conservation, it doesn't show up on that list, call us anyway. Because if it is an energy efficiency product, we're always looking for, there's new technology that's always coming on the horizon. There's things that might not be included for whatever reason, but, industry specific things, stuff like that. But just call us and let us know.
One other benefit associated with participating in a program like this is the earned media campaign aspect. We have yet to close on a project here in Fayetteville. So if one of your projects you think would be applicable for PACE financing, if we get that project over the finish line, there's going to be an opportunity for the city to extol the virtues of such project, and that will also be included on the latest news section of the website. And we've got a pretty good network of media contacts. As you can see, if you click on the latest news portion of the website, you can see that several different radio stations and newspapers had covered the launch of the program. And so this kind of information may be valuable to specific property owners, because participating in the PACE program is an investment in their corporate social responsibility portfolio as a business and as a local community citizen. And so it shows that they're participating in the sustainability efforts of the city, and that can have value to a retailer or to a business. And so it's hard to quantify the actual dollar amount of that value, but earned media is a real thing, and that's one of the other benefits associated with the program.
Any other questions?
I wanted to also mention there's a frequently asked question section of the website which has, 24 questions, with the answers. So this kind of can get you started if you have a specific question. A lot of the different areas are covered. I'm sorry, did someone was asking? Yeah.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Would you walk through the coordination of Clear Result and PACE and maybe the federal energy tax credit for renewables right now? How does that all flow together and gel?
Well, when you start to talk about the tax credits, rebates, anything like that, that works hand in hand with PACE. Okay, so they can get 100% financing for their project, and then still take advantage of those tax credits. I think Clear Result had advised and funneled some projects to the program, which is great. But beyond that, as far as tax credit goes, the full project gets funded, and then the tax credits can be. There's a few different ways that can be handled. People have done power purchase agreements with PACE. In other words, they can monetize those tax credits. The tax credits can be just utilized by the property owner. So it's really kind of an independent thing, and that's also one of the nuances that can be worked into the structure of the financing. When it comes to rebates, sometimes what they'll do is they'll take the rebate and use that to pay down the principal, but a lot of it has to do with whatever works best with the financing structure with the property. So
A lot of flexibility there.
there's a lot of flexibility. That's one thing, like I said, we keep an open financing model, which means that we can go out and find the best financing source for the property. If there's, depending upon what the property owner's sensitive with regards to.
The little mom and pop St. Louis that you said was one of the fastest to close because it was straightforward, how long did it take from start to finish?
Was that 4
It was
weeks?
2 weeks after
2
program
weeks.
launch.
Yeah. Like I said, they had everything ready to go and queued up. Another project we're working on that's really kind of interesting was this old, they call it the Pierce Arrow Building, and it's a really old car manufacturing place where they like custom build the cars and then sell them out of a showroom. And what was interesting about it was that it was kind of a hodgepodge of all these older buildings kind of put together. And we did a walk through the building, and it was now had multiple different uses throughout the building. Some common like work areas, like office space, individual office space, some other, artist loft, things like that. But it was such a hodgepodge. You could look out the side of the building, you could see like window unit, air conditioning units on different parts, and some areas were all metered together and some were metered individually. This project was just screaming out for a comprehensive approach, because it had like 3 different buildings that were all like together.
And some of the rooms in the building were originally a large portion of a floor, and then they were partitioned off by the property owner so that they could be rented separately. But then, of course, they didn't deal with the HVAC and how that interfaced with those rooms. So you're going to find that a lot in some of these buildings, that kind of vulnerability, if you will, in terms of the energy design, and PACE can step in and solve those problems for a property owner and put all the actionable information in front of the property owner in regard to the energy use. Yes?
Just a quick comment question. I wanted to introduce myself real quickly. I'm Keith Smith. I'm with Iberia Bank, and I just say that to instill the fact that there are local lenders very interested in financing energy efficiency and renewable energy projects in Fayetteville and throughout the state. And also, I have a quick question for you guys. If you've seen with some of the larger PACE projects, if the initial impetus for those projects may or may not be energy efficiency, perhaps it's deferred maintenance, and PACE becomes a tool for changing out a boiler or a large capital intensive piece of equipment, and then it ends up becoming an energy efficiency project that maybe starts with different motivations.
Yes, that's absolutely the case. And oftentimes, property owners haven't considered all the options that they can do on a property, and that's the contractor's role, and that's our role as program administrators to facilitate the contractor in communicating that kind of whole building science approach to properties. And Keaton, thanks for being involved in the PACE legislation here in Arkansas from the beginning, because we know that your background has been very integrated with what Steve Patterson's been doing, and I think it's really important to get people in the financial sector that have a forward-thinking approach towards energy efficiency and energy financing, and that's great that you're pressing in and being a part of this. Thank you.
And one of the aspects with regards to that, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I mentioned before the spiking cost of being on the steam loop. You know, that pushed something, but a lot of times you're going to find something like that pushing a property owner to even start to look at this, and that's when you can start, expanding the scope and looking at things more holistically. Because one of the benefits that the Missouri Athletic Club is looking at is the fact that there are a lot of deferred maintenance issues that are now going to be fixed for the foreseeable future, so that they'll be saving money on capital expenditures down the road that they haven't even budgeted for yet. But that's a really good point. That I mean, not just the boiler that's broken today, but the one that's might need replacing in a year. They can deal with that in one big shot too.
Is there a minimum loan?
25,000.
Is there a maximum?
No. And if the numbers get really high, then there's options to bonding, to issue bonds for it, because the PACE board has the authority to issue bonds. Which would be a form of pooling investors to back a larger project, as opposed to having one funding source fund a project. Essentially is what that would translate to. And I think it's, any kind of project that you guys are looking at, PACE financing is going to be the most credit enhanced approach to get financing done for the project. So what I'm suggesting is start with PACE as the funding option. Don't start with a traditional lender that's going to have more onerous underwriting standards and perhaps will not be able to bring a project over the finish line. In some cases, if you start with PACE financing, there may be a traditional lender that might step in at some point, and that would be the appropriate track then. Because the PACE financing, as with the special tax assessment that's attached to the property, in essence, the financing goes to the title of the property as a concept. It doesn't go to the business at borrowing the money or the individual borrowing the money, but the property is borrowing the money. And if that property owner sells the property in 2 years, the energy equity associated with the PACE financing stays with the property. So it transfers with the property. It does not accelerate. That's another beneficial characteristic to this financing. So my suggestion is that when you're introducing your services to a customer, that you put PACE financing as the first option, because that will be the option that will get more projects financed than any other option currently available. In fact, our meeting with a large solar contractor recently said that PACE financing is the only thing we're doing for solar now.
Well, if you guys have any other questions or any follow-ups or anything like that, you can contact any one of us to follow up with. And
Hey,
Ken.
Byron, have you guys, I stepped out and may have missed it, but have you talked about the nexus between PACE programs and the utility energy efficiency programs, you've already covered that somewhat.
Yeah, so
Just
there's
working
incentive, there's rebates and incentives which work seamlessly with the PACE financing. The PACE financing doesn't block any incentives or rebates.
And some of your projects that you demonstrated or showed as examples earlier had some of those actual partnerships, right, between utility EE programs and PACE financing.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And in fact, a lot of these utility incentive energy efficiency programs are starting to move into the more comprehensive retrofit space as opposed to just giving light bulbs to folks. You know, the light bulb era is closing down, and now we have to look at the building envelope and incorporate whole building science in these community energy efficiency programs but carried by the utility companies. And the other piece there is in regard to tax credits. That doesn't immediately affect cash flow because there's different ways to monetize tax credits. Sometimes you use a power purchase agreement with a solar project, and then the owner of the solar panels can then monetize those tax credits. So there's different creative approaches towards working with the tax credits.
One last question. I know that I've run across a few churches that are interested in this. What was the final outcome? I couldn't remember.
They can do it.
They can do
They're
it.
eligible, yeah. We met with the county. Don't get special assessment to nonprofit organizations, including
Okay.
churches.
And would students qualify under that category
Yes.
as well? Okay.
So publicly owned buildings or privately owned buildings apply for PACE. And the collector revenue can just put a line item on the property tax bill because the collector of revenue in many cases have these properties in their database. They just don't charge them property tax. So in the case of, like, for example, the St. Louis program, it's lined out as a SID, as a community improvement district charge.
And then do farms qualify for it as well?
Any property. I don't think there's, in fact, we're exploring ways to finance street lamps and things like this that the city owns,
Okay.
even. So the legislation's written in a very broad manner to enable this kind of transformation of our energy portfolio to occur.
How close are y'all to closing your first deal up here?
4 weeks,
4 weeks?
maybe.
But if you got something, we'll try to bring it over the finish line quickly.
I knew you launched in December, that's why I was asking.
Yeah. Well, look at, I mean, it's, the pipeline's starting to come along. And I mean, from a whole market standpoint, there's a lot of talk about big dollars trying to get out into the marketplace. You know, people, they want to invest in energy efficiency.
So don't hesitate to, if a question pops up, you know, if you have a particular issue with a property owner that you would like us to explore with you, don't hesitate to engage, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help you get gigs and to bring them over the finish line. So that's our role.
There's a contact feature on the website.
Yeah.
You can reach us that way. We do get a lot of emails there, so.
Yeah.
We also have a Facebook page.
You had the $25 application fee, is that the only upfront fee to the customer?
Correct.
Yes. Now, if there's like an energy audit involved or something like that, that's something that the contractor can work out with the customer. But if they pay up front for an energy audit, they can pull that into the financing as well and actually get rebated that money. So, I mean, and obviously for large buildings, that, you know, energy audits, particularly investment grade energy audits, can be very expensive. So,
It also provides a motivation for a property owner to not just kick the tires, but rather go and complete the project.
yeah.
Anybody else? Good.
Is PACE 501c, is it a nonprofit or is it a for-profit independent financing group?
Hey.
Or how are you all set up now?
The way we're set up is, A2E2 is a for-profit company that administers the program for the board, and the Energy Improvement District Board is actual government entity. So, and that's, you know, that's one of the things we do as administrators is just to streamline the process and make the communication, because there's a component to this where we have to track the overall performance of the program. So we have to make sure we keep our hands around everything that's going on with all the projects, and then help each contractor individually work with different projects. So, and then we report back to these guys to make sure that everything's going smoothly.
But only projects in the city limits of Fayetteville are eligible for this, is that right?
Currently. And, you know, in terms of like what's on the horizon, it's our view that PACE financing will be a part of every real estate transaction in 5 years. And that's because PACE financing for new development or for retrofits, property improvements, it has such significant beneficial characteristics. And like I mentioned earlier, the community has a seat at the table in regard to how we use our energy. And that's why this public-private partnership has been made available. And, you know, we invite you guys to participate in the program and to register with the program and put your logos up and your company descriptions. And we can all make this thing a successful thing for the city of Fayetteville, save folks on energy bills, create jobs, and increase the sustainability of the community. So thank you very much. I'm Byron DeLear, and this is Tom Applebaum and Steve Patterson. And I've got business cards if you want to come up and get some business cards, so some contact information. And thank you so much for being a part of this contractor
Grab some
informational session.
trifolds too.
Yeah, and we'll hang around if anybody has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.